Canada facing what you really could call a crisis economically, with a damaged relationship with this country's biggest trading partner. Let's get a look forward to tomorrow's budget in Ottawa. We are joined by Lachlan Wolfers, leader of KPMG Law. Lachlan, thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Good morning, Andrew. Great to be with you.
You reckon that we are at something of a turning point in our economic history?
So I think so. And I think what stands this budget out compared with many that we've had before now is really the long-term focus that we need with this particular budget. I call it it's the budget of the three T's. We've got trade and obviously tariffs as part of that. We've got taxes and the hint by Prime Minister Carney around some changes to our corporate tax system. And then we really have the need for a long-term transition of the Canadian economy to reduce the dependency on the United States as our largest trading partner, currently accounting for just over 75% of our exports, and really with an ambition to try and change that and diversify the economy. So it's a big, big budget ahead of us.
What are one or two things that you are anxious to see tomorrow?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that I'd see is the extent to which the Prime Minister focuses on the longer term transition of the economy, and in particular, how do we really support business to try and diversify trade? So the Prime Minister set an ambitious target to double the amount of trade with our non-US trading partners within the next 10 years. But we've got to recognise we're starting from a very low base where none of those trading partners currently account for 5% of our export trade. So it's really about how we're going to do that, okay, and how that's going to occur, because ultimately we're looking for government support, but it's private sector that's going to be carrying out those trading activities. And then I think what's related to that is the extent to which there's going to be a short-term support for those particular industries that have been very hard hit by the sectoral tariffs. And I think what businesses are also looking for, two other things very quickly. One is how do we ensure that our tax system in Canada is more competitive from a corporate tax perspective to try and at least match what the United States has? And along similar lines, how do we stir private sector investment in equipment, machinery, and other similar assets to really try and get things moving? Because what we've learned over a long period is when there is uncertainty from a trade perspective, people tend to hold back on many of those forms of capital investment. And how the Prime Minister is going to unlock those through more permanent, immediate asset write-offs and other similar measures is something that will be key to this budget.
So that would be a tax break that has been called for, more prompt write-offs of investments.
It has. And look, KPMG recently carried out a poll of just over 501 companies across the country, and over 90% of those have asked for a commitment around longer-term tax reform in this country. And I think the trade challenges we're facing with the United States right now really provides the impetus for longer-term reform. I think what people are looking for, to sort of borrow the Wayne Gretzky quote, is that, to what extent is this budget going to focus on allowing the country to skate to where the puck is going to be rather than where it's coming from? And this is really the challenge here. How do we unlock productivity growth in this country? How do we ensure investment in areas like AI and really try and set us up for longer term success, as opposed to simply short-term measures to deal with some of the immediate challenges that we've got in particular sectors of the economy?
Seems like a tough challenge. We've had decades of low business investment. How are we going to turn that around?
It's not an easy proposition. And I think the first thing is there's a lot of discussion around what the trade deficit may look like, what the fiscal deficit may look like in this particular budget. And I think that the key aspect is we should probably focus less on the absolute amount of the deficit in this particular budget and really focus on saying, what is the return on that investment going to look like over a longer period of time? Again, this budget should be measured by reference to the success it's going to be able to achieve over a 5 to 10 year time horizon rather than a quick sugar hit to the economy. I think the way I would describe it in very simple terms is that sometimes good politics is not the same as good policy, and I think this is a period where we need good policy.
Would you like to see radical cutbacks in federal government spending accompanied by tax reductions?
Well, I think the reality of the situation is that money's got to come from somewhere. So if you're going to be reducing corporate tax rates, which is certainly what the Prime Minister has hinted at, question is whether that's going to be widespread or not. Then the issue is how you're going to pay for that. The question is how do we deliver on that without cutting essential services that we as Canadians really value, and I think that the spending side of things from that perspective is going to be really interesting to see in this particular budget. I also would say if we step back and look at some of the activities over the last few days, we've seen China reach a trade deal with the United States. We've seen Korea reach a trade deal with the United States at a 15% tariff rate. I think what Canada needs to see, because this is the reality, is a trade deal with the United States which positions us in a way that is not any worse than what we see as our major trade competitors around the world. And right now, Canada's sitting at a tariff rate of 25% with the threat of it increasing by a further 10%. That would be very uncompetitive. And I think we've got to really see how we can reach a trade deal that gets us to a position of relatively stronger level of competitive position. I think most Canadians would now see and expect that tariffs are potentially here for the longer term. Mm-hmm. How do we remove that uncertainty, reach a trade deal on reasonable terms, and then head into the 2026 review of our CUSMA agreement with the United States on a better footing. After all, this is fundamental because 75%, roughly speaking, of our economy or our exports are to the United States, and that's going to be very critical to our short-term measure of success here.
Thanks very much, Lachlan. Really appreciate it.
Great to be with you. Thanks, Andrew.
Lachlan Wolfers, leader at KPMG Law.